स्टडी IQ IAS, अब तैयारी हुई अफोर्डेबल।
Hello students, welcome to StudyIQ's initiative, the podcast. I am your host Dipansh Murjani. So get your juices flowing because it is time for the podcast of the day. In the last episode of the podcast, we had discussed all the provisions till motion of thanks. So all the new listeners out there can listen to our previous episodes not only on YouTube but also on all the audio streaming platforms like Spotify, Hubhopper, Apple Podcast, etc. In today's episode, we are going to begin our discussion from no day yet named motion. Sir, can you give us some brief information about this motion?
No day yet named motion is that motion has been admitted by the speaker, but no date has been fixed for its own discussion. The speaker, after considering the state of business in the House and in consultation with the leader of the House or on the recommendation of the Business Advisory Committee, allots a day or days or part of a day for the discussion of such motion.
Sir, while studying motions of Parliament, students often get confused between censor motion and no confidence motion. So, can you throw some light on the differences between these two motions?
The differences between censure motion and no confidence motion, I would like to highlight some points. The first point of difference between both is that censure motion should state the reason for its adoption in the Lok Sabha. However, in no confidence motion, it need not state the reason for its adoption in the Lok Sabha. The second point of difference between both is that in censure motion, it can be moved against an individual minister or a group of minister or even an entire council of minister. However, in case of no confidence motion, it can be moved against the entire council of ministers only and not in the case of single or individual minister. The third point of difference is that in censure motion, it is moved for censuring the council of ministers for specific policies and actions. However, in no confidence motion, it is moved for asserting the confidence of Lok Sabha in the Council of Ministers. The fourth point of difference between both is that in censure motion, the Council of Ministers need not resign from the office if it is passed in the Lok Sabha. However, in no confidence motion, the Council of Ministers must resign from office if the motion is passed in the Lok Sabha.
Sir, what is dilatory motion?
Dilatory motion is a motion for adjournment of the debate on a bill, motion, or even a resolution. The dilatory motion can be moved by a member at any time after a motion has been made. The debate on a dilatory motion must be restricted to the matter contained in such motions. The next important tool in parliamentary function is point of order. A member can raise a point of order when the proceedings of the House do not follow the normal rules of procedure. A point of order should relate to the interpretation or enforcement of the rules of the House or even such articles of the Constitution that regulate the business of the House, and they should raise a question that is within the cognizance of the Speaker. It is usually raised by an opposition member in order to control the government. Point of order is an extraordinary device as it suspends the proceedings before the House. One thing is to be remembered that no debate is allowed on a point of order.
Sir, there are some motions in our parliament where discussions are subject to restriction, like half an hour discussion or short duration discussion. So, can you enlighten us about these motions?
Half an hour discussion is meant for discussing a matter of sufficient public importance, which has been subjected to a lot of debate and the answer to which needs elucidation on a matter of fact. The Speaker can allot 3 days in a week for such discussions. There is no formal motion or voting before the House. The second motion is that short duration discussion. Short duration discussion, also known as 2-hour discussion, as the time allotted for the such discussion should not exceed 2 hours. The members of parliament can raise such discussions on a matter of urgent public importance. The Speaker can allot 2 days in a week for such discussions. There is neither a formal motion before the House nor voting. This device has been in existence since 1953. The next motion is special motion, a matter which is not a point of order or which cannot be raised during question hour, half an hour discussion, or even short duration discussion. Then it can be raised under the special mention in the Rajya Sabha. Its equivalent procedural device in Lok Sabha is called notice mention under Rule 377.
Sir, after understanding all the important motions of our parliament, now we want to learn about resolutions. And what is the difference between resolution and motion?
The difference between the resolution and motion is less of a content and more of a procedural aspect. Members can move resolution to draw the attention of the House or the government to matters of general public interest. Resolutions are always formally voted upon. All resolutions can be viewed as substantive motion. A member who has moved a resolution or amendment to a resolution cannot withdraw the same except by leave of the House. There are types of resolution which we have to understand. The first is private members' resolution. This is moved by a private member which is other than a minister, and it is discussed only on alternative Fridays in the afternoon seating of those Fridays. The second resolution is government resolution. This is moved by a minister specifically, and it can be taken up any day from Monday to Thursday. The next resolution is statutory resolution. This can be moved either by a private member or even a minister. It is always tabled in pursuance of provision in the Constitution or an Act of Parliament.
Sir, related to motion or resolution, are there any issues?
Issues with some motions is that specifically I remember I have to discuss guillotine motion and its issues related to it. The guillotine motion dilutes the accountability of the legislature over the executive. Passage of guillotine frequently could lead to a misappropriation of allocations in the business. Guillotine reduces also the role of oversight of opposition over public finance. And misuse of the provisions can also happen. We will try to understand with an past example, which is less than about 40% of the part of the budget in 2019 got discussed, and moreover it was passed as a guillotine due to want of time.
Sir, can you suggest some way forwards which we can include in our mains answer writing?
Specifically to the guillotine motion, which should be used in very exceptional circumstances. The first suggestion is that before passing such motions, opposition should be consulted so that the smooth functioning of such motions and the purpose of the motions should be resolved. The motions like guillotine motion, it should not be passed in a case of important provisions in the bill, so that the important provisions of the bill get due respect of the parliamentary procedures of deliberations, discussions, and improvement in its course. The next way forward can be the selective and case-by-case approach could be a effective way for the extreme cases in the motions.
Sir, thank you for giving us the information. Dear listeners, we will call it quits for this episode of the podcast. In the next episode, we will be back with another topic. So stay connected with StudyIQ and keep studying. You can listen to StudyIQ Presents the podcast on all the audio streaming platforms like Spotify, Hubhopper, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Kuku FM, etc. Links are pinned in the comment section below. Thank you.